Right now on Full Custom Garage, master metalman Ian Roussel transforms an old jalopy into a street-burning hot rod.
My friend Don has a real steel 1931 Ford. It's a 5-window coupe. That's a perfect starting point.
But Ian's unorthodox approach doesn't sit well with his traditional client.
There's times I sit and go, okay, Ian, what are you thinking about? Because he's picking up the strangest part to put on my car.
This is like work, you know? I'm at work here trying to make a really bitchin' car, but I gotta get back to my shop. There's something I've been looking to finish, and I gotta get to it.
Back at the lab, Ian attempts to resurrect a crazy creation.
This car is really kind of the opposite of what Don's is. His is for the street, this is for the show. All it does is get off the trailer, show up at the club, and do its dance.
And later at Don's, things start heating up.
I'd say a significant event occurred in my absence. Hot rods are a purely American thing. They started with early Fords mostly, 20s and 30s Fords. As I understand, GIs came home from World War II, they wanted to go fast. These were made from cheap cars that were just sitting around, just waiting to be hot rodded. The primary reason these cars were modified was to go fast. The looks just kind of followed the function. Chop top, for instance, was to streamline the car. These cars had big, tall, square roofs, so the chop top came about from hot rodding. The big draw to these cars is that they're just a blast to drive. They're lightweight, big horsepower. It's just a pretty gnarly experience. These cars are really desirable. They're making fiberglass reproductions, all steel reproductions, so to find an original surviving all-metal body, that's the best starting point.
Ian and I have been friends for a while. We've worked on several projects together. He gets excited coming over here to see all the projects that I have. I like things a little more simple, and Ian's way more creative.
This is like ideal hot rod material. It's a little bit too far gone if you needed to restore it. All the mechanical parts are junk, but for a hot rod, this body is really good.
Just as we started this project, I was injured, and I've been laid up for almost a year now. And this has been the best therapy, with Ian as motivated as he is, and me knowing I wanted to finish this project and get it going, the relationship on that worked out really good.
Don's wanted to bring this car back to life for years. It's literally, I don't know, 30 years, 40 years sitting around.
This car's been in the family for almost 50 years now. It needed to do something with it. It was just a cool car.
I love this car. It's really old. It's not rotten. It's been through some stuff. It's an old car. Got crunched in on the side. The frame is toast, but the body is totally usable.
It had been heavily damaged in an accident when it was in storage. And that kind of took the wind out of the sails on putting it back to original. And that's when we truly decided to go all out with it and build a new frame for it. I have a lot of ideas the way I want this car to come out, and Ian's creative mind, I'm sure he's got a lot more different ideas as well. So this is going to be interesting on this project.
There's a show coming up. I just want to go see what's around, get some inspiration, and start this new project. The Ventura Nationals has gone through a couple different transitions. It used to be called the Primer Nationals, but the primered cars have evolved into, like, you'll see, full custom blowout. This show is happening. Looking at other 31 Fords, this is like straight cool traditional custom. This is a lot like Don's in that it's a highboy. It's on the stock frame. It's running a Chevy V8 motor. It's just, you know, this is a really clean car. It's the way you would see it done in the 50s or 60s. And it's just a bitchin' look. The way they got the paint set up, it looks kind of old and patinaed. But this is a real hot rod. Good stuff. It's the same year. It's a 31 Ford. It's unchopped. It's a highboy. It's up on top of the frame. This one I consider even more traditional. It has the wishbones, but they haven't been split, so it sits taller. It's got a flathead V8 motor in it. It's totally legit hot rod. It's the real deal. The exhaust on this car is bitchin'. I really like it. It makes a mess, but it looks awesome. Seems like everything with hot rods has been done. I'm always trying to break new ground, but I see these traditional cars that are pretty mellow, and they're damn nice. Kinda on the fence. I know where I want to go, but sometimes you just gotta hold back. We really started this project about a year ago. I built a whole frame for it, and we haven't done anything since. I made a whole front clip look like a stock car. That's when the debate really started.
I wanted to lengthen it out about 8 inches just so we'd have more room in the cab of the car. I'm trying to build it as comfortable as I can.
The problem with extending the wheelbase is it's not that Model A hot rod that you see on the lakes in the 50s. Those cars were running a stock wheelbase most of the time, and that's the look.
But I was going for more of the practical look, had to make it comfortable.
Don really wanted room in the footwell, so we ended up making the chassis 6 inches longer. For the rear part of the frame, I used 2x3, 1/8 wall, and I used the Model A frame as a template where I put this little jog in it. I just set that up and took the 2x6, just made a join and then plated them with a 1/4-inch plate on the outsides all the way around. We don't have a proper hot rod front axle, so I'm looking for something that looks like it. Don's got a '59 Ford truck in the back, and I think I can modify that to work. Since we need a front axle for the 31, I did this on another car, like a T-bucket I built. I used a truck axle. So it's cool because these straight axles, they have hydraulic brakes. They got the old school wide 5 bolt pattern. The cool thing about this axle is Don's already got it. It's here, it's got a great brake setup. A lot of guys would convert their cars to truck brakes, and really that's the main benefit. I'm just using the whole axle, but it's all about stopping. It's a no-brainer. I'm just gonna cut off the leaf spring mounts and create a new mount for the hot rod style spring. All right, so that's the deal. The main thing I'm gonna have to do before I start, see these pads where the old leaf springs used to mount? I'm gonna cut straight through and then weld a bracket on to hold the new radius rods. I'm cutting off the brackets that held the parallel leaf springs. That's the way the '59 truck was set up, but I want a transverse leaf spring. I'm making new mounts to hold this new style spring. It's pretty straight ahead, it's just gotta be really strong. I'm making the setup so that it holds the radius rods and the spring. So it's really just a bunch of 1/4-inch plate. It's basically just a big steel gusset structure that locates the axle. That's all. That's what I do, man. Just using what's available. Anybody can get in the catalog and pick a number, but I'm making it. This axle's done. I painted it black. It's a very simple thing. Just a bunch of bolts at this point, and it's ready to roll. Don ordered the radius rods from the catalog.
I don't have a problem with ordering from the catalog. I'm trying to make his job a little bit easier.
Don had the rear end he wants to use, so I put on some brackets, hooked up the 4-link kit. Now we got a rolling chassis. Found this Chevy truck steering box, mounted it to the frame. It's gonna work great. The challenge is mating it up to the forward front axle. They're different ends on the drag link. With every car I've made like this, I've had to make a custom length drag link. So when you put the end on, you just use the Chevy on one side and the Ford on the other.
With all the stuff that I have around here, Ian really has never asked me to go buy anything for a project.
I really like using stuff that's around. There's sometimes you can't get away from ordering parts, bushings, heim joints, that type of thing. But I really just like to find stuff and modify it to fit what we're doing. I think that's the whole thing about being a fabricator instead of a restoration-minded person. I'm looking for stuff that I can use, cut it apart, and make it happen. Somebody who's restoring a car is looking for the proper thing that bolts back on. Now that it rolls and steers, there's a few other mechanical things I gotta wrap up and then get on to the aesthetics. So the engine and transmission are basically out of a '67 Mustang. So we're using the same radiator. I built a simple angle iron frame to support it, and it's gonna get held on with 2 bolts to the frame like the stock one, and then it'll just have 2 locating rods to keep it upright that hit the cowl. This is pretty rad. It's a 32 Ford. It's a reproduction grill shell. All right, we're still waiting to figure out what we do about the insert, but that's pretty much the setup. The next step is to mount the headlights and then create some kind of a shock bracket. Typical setup on the Model A hot rod is the headlight mounts have an integral shock mount. It's another thing you could order from the catalog, but I'm trying to make this car Don's. Put as many unique things in it as you can, so I'm just gonna make them out of some 1/4-inch steel plate, and really it's a no-brainer. The whole thing about this setup is strength. Those headlights are nice. You don't want them falling off. So the shock absorber is gonna be pushing and pulling on the headlight mount. It's gotta look cool, it's gotta be super strong. You can't mess with these headlights. Polished stainless steel with the cool little lights on top. Money, it's good stuff. This body is 80, 90, whatever years old. It's super old. We had to take it and do a bunch of work underneath. We got replacement wheel arches, a couple replacement quarters, and it's really just cut and weld. Bodywork, sand, sand, sand. We finally get the thing pretty dialed in. It's time to see how it looks as a roller. Don's got the treasure. He's got this Chevy truck steering box, but it ain't gonna work. The stock truck steering box is just one long rod. It's a straight shot from the steering wheel to the box. The Model A is way smaller, so we gotta bend it a bit. Took the steering shaft, cut it a few times, put in 2 universal joints and a couple mounts. There you have it. It's a bent steering rod, and it works perfect. The whole deal is getting the steering wheel in a comfortable position to drive. The steering box is pretty far off from where it would have been in the stock location. Car's lower, so we had to modify the steering shaft. Getting the steering column together was pretty important. You can research or think about anything as much as you want, but the proof is in the test, and it works great. Once I saw the body on the chassis, all I could think was chop top, but Don's hesitant.
This car is an all original, it's an all steel car. I would like to keep it looking as much like an original car as I can. That's why I'm really dragging my feet on chopping the top on this one.
In the end, Don's looking for a comfortable driving car, so no chop top. I'm just trying to help Don build his car. Every Model A has a hole in the roof. You can't get around it. One of the cool factors is it really gives you an opportunity to kind of make your mark. I've been looking around all over, trying to figure out what's gonna be cool. Don's got a bunch of van roofs, he's got car hoods, car trunks, all kinds of stuff. Looking around, I come up on this Mustang hood, and it's pretty thrashed. This is a '69 Mustang hood. The car got wrecked. I cut it out about the same size as the roof opening in the Model A. It's got a neat crease down the center, and it's worthless as a replacement hood. So we were talking about using it to fill the hole in the roof. The contour fits, and it's got this cool little detail in the roof. The selling point to me was the ridge in the hood. The ridge in the hood immediately made me think of a 50s trick where they would put these little air vents in the roof of the car. So that's really what I was hoping to do. I mean, I already had this thing built in my head.
I'm not really sure about the scoop Ian's talking about on the back. I'm, more leaning towards a original stock car. But as creative as Ian is, you have to step back. He's so creative. I mean, there's times I sit and go, okay, Ian, what are you thinking about? Because he's picking up the strangest part to pick up and put on my car. It amazes me that you never know where he's gonna go with something.
So I'll probably mellow out these two side ridges a little bit, and they'll just have a center peak right through the hood. It's like I can finally get creative on a very conservative build, which is like my release valve. Finally, I can do something inspiring. The whole deal with this roof insert is the car can buckle. This is a pretty structural point, so I'm having to clean out all the old crud. The whole deal is just grinding all the edges, getting it super clean so we can mate the sheet metal up, and it's a good, strong weld. Because if this car goes in a driveway or something, gets some torsional twist, the roof is gonna pop up. It's really important that this is strong, so we're setting it up so it's really strong. This is a huge sheet metal panel, and I don't want to warp it. There's a million ways to jig it up, but I found that tech screws, just screwing it down every few inches, works perfect. So that's the plan. Just screw it down. We'll come back and fill up the holes later with weld. Pretty much it. We'll just weld this on. It's going to take a long time to make all the tack welds. It's about 16 linear feet of welding, so stand by. It's all screwed together and there's no warps or kinks, so it's gonna be a slow welding process, round and round for hours. It takes so long to spot weld a big panel like this. I mean, your thoughts can go anywhere, but mostly for me, it's like the sound of a long, empty hallway with a slight breeze coming through it. It's just nothing. You can't think too much when you're doing this or you go crazy. It takes a long time. The satisfaction comes in the end result, because a lot of guys will want to work through it too fast, and I know what happens. I've been there. So really, I've trained myself to just slow down time. Just take your time and do it right. It's not that hard to weld this on correctly. The whole deal is not heating it up. And if you do heat it up, you got to know how to recover from it. And that's really where the hammer welding comes in. Each time the weld cools down, it shrinks a bit. So nothing's perfect. Some spot welds will be hotter than others. So if you find that it's starting to oil can on you, it gets out of shape, you gotta hammer it back before you do the next weld. It's really just keeping the metal under control. It's just a slow process. You gotta do it right. Once the welding's all done, you just grind it out. It's the same deal that you don't wanna heat it up, because you can warp it when you're grinding it. So you gotta know where you're going. Just take your time and get it right. When I'm grinding it, I'm just making sure I don't heat it up. I try to keep the edge of the disc on the weld. Never hit the sheet metal. It's really just, you gotta pay attention. Last part of the equation is the Bondo. Mix it up, fill it, go on to primer. The whole purpose of the Bondo is to level the surface. So you mix it up, spread it, cut it back real fast. Get as much of the material off as possible, because you want the paint to be as close to the metal as possible. The whole idea with Bondo is using as little as possible, so I like to work fast. I found that I can use this big old saw blade, and it's like 10 grit sandpaper. So if you use it right, it goes really quick. You just sling off the high spots real fast, just go to 36 grit after that. Don's car is bitchin' and all, but it's really not the creative entity that I'm looking for. It's like, this is like work, you know? I'm at work here. I'm trying to make a really bitchin' car, but I gotta get back to my shop. There's something I've been looking to finish, and I gotta get to it. Working on Don's hot rod has got me thinking about this car I built about 5 years ago. It's a total show car. It just had some suspension issues, and it's really making me want to bring it back. I took the whole car apart to freshen it up, and what I'm gonna really do is make the suspension work. There's a few really cool ideas, but without the final touches, it's pretty much unusable. This is the freaking mess. It's a pretty nonsensical car. This is the bare frame. The motor and transmission are in it because it's so high fashion, it requires a ton of disassembly to get the engine out. So today, I just gotta come up with a plan. When I originally built the car, I had taken 2 airbags and stacked one on top of the other so they would blow up like an accordion. They were huge. So the airbags, you can see what I did. I just hogged out the threads on this so they just located. So they would fit together like that, a double stack. But the problem was with the arc of the suspension, they would literally turn into a noodle. And if the axle twisted, then they would come apart. They would pop out of the car. So this bag would be here, and then it would just literally break free. The worst thing was that the car could barely even get on the trailer. Even as a trailer queen, it couldn't do that one simple task. The cool factor is it looks like a toy. It looks fake. It was a super simple design. The 2-link is okay, but it needs a third. It needs something to stop it from going left to right. The whole deal with this modification is I do have to put in suspension components and basically busy up the design a little. I'm trying to make it look as cool as it did in the beginning, but without these extra parts, it just doesn't work. My challenge is to make it look as cool as possible and still drive. What I had established, obviously you got plenty of up and down movement, you got articulation in the axle, but I need to stop it from going side to side. So the fix is a 3rd link, some kind of a rod with a joint that as the suspension moves up and down, it swings with it, but it stops it from moving side to side. That's the fix. I might put shocks just inside here. This is all hidden. Might come off with shocks on each side like that. That way it'll give it a little help when it articulates and rises and falls. This is still a show car. It doesn't need to drive across town. It's got no VIN numbers. It's got no license plates. It's not an off-road vehicle. It just needs to get on the trailer. I need to get it out of the storage and back to the show. Goal today is to get this thing to have shocks and a 3rd link in the suspension. I was able to get a couple shocks, Volkswagen front shocks from an early 60s Bug. I figured they're gas charged, so this isn't a performance car. These were around, and I'm gonna make them fit, even if they wouldn't otherwise. Went digging around in my friend Don's back lot. I was able to come up with an old tie rod from a car. I always like to put a little Volkswagen in every project. I'm using VW front shocks, and I found this tie rod at Don's. I'm gonna make into a 3rd link for the suspension. I just cut one end off. I have to cut it to length, but I think this will work perfect for the cross link. I'll have to come up with a couple mounts and mount this crossways in here so that as the suspension travels up and down, it won't go side to side. The first step today is to create an upper shock mount. I'm really trying to make this thing look like it belongs on the car and not an afterthought. So it's got to be strong and it's got to look as cool as the rest of the vehicle. I've really been tossing around a few ideas on how to build this thing. What I really know is that I don't want to grind on the frame. I don't want to disturb the paintwork that's there. So I'm trying to come up with a creative idea that'll bolt on. What this needs to do for functionality is locate the upper bushing on the shocks. I got a whole bunch of this, it looks like 1x3 or so, rectangular tube. So if that sits on here, and once the shock is collapsed, it comes out to just about the right measurement. So if I set that up like that with a bolt going through, that should work perfect. They're gas charged, they gotta be really secure. It's got to be a strong part and it's got to look cool. I'm trying to make this thing look like it belongs on the car, and I've got drilled holes all over the thing. Some are dimpled, some are all the way through, so probably going to come up with some kind of a thing that matches parts of the suspension. I just cut an 11-inch piece of that 1x3 rectangular stock, drilled a bunch of holes. It took a while. I left the ends without holes because I'm going to put 2 small pieces of tube so I can put a bolt through it. I used a TIG welder to fit the bushings on the end of this rectangular bar. I did that primarily so it's a really neat weld, simple, minimal. There's no finish work, it just looks cool. The whole concept with this from the beginning was to make it look like it wouldn't work. So I'm still trying to keep all these functioning parts kind of minimalistic standpoint. When you look at the car, I don't want you to see a bunch of accessories bolted on. I'm trying to keep it low key. All right. So that worked out good. But the shocks, I think I'm gonna trim these shocks a little bit because that looks too stock. So this whole upper shock looks pretty bulky, and you don't really need this. This is just like a shield for a street car. You'll see what the deal is. I'll just cut this whole top off and it'll look pretty clean. The whole idea is this being a show car, I want you to look at the flashy stuff. This isn't a focal point, this is purely function. Taking these upper shrouds off of the shock, just because it makes them look a little lighter, a little cooler. You got a nice shiny chrome rod coming out of it. Just looks cooler. They put these shrouds on it for cars on the street, keeps water, rocks, any kind of crud out of the moving part. But this doesn't have that. This car's never going to be in the rain or in the mud, so no crud's going to go down into the shock absorber. So it was primarily for looks. It looks bitchin'. The primary difference in the setup between Don's and my car is I'm using an airbag system. They both have a center mount, but his leaf spring is the thing that locates the axle and keeps it centered. My design for the airbag doesn't have anything to keep the axle centered, so I need to put this third link in. That'll keep it from self-destructing. The whole idea with this being on airbags is it's got to function. It's got to move up and down pretty quickly. It's got to look cool and be strong. Everything seems to be working, but you never know what could go wrong. I mean, this is a raw chassis. Everything seems to be operating, but I'll never know until I get the thing assembled, so we'll see. Spent a bunch of time getting some stuff done on my car, and that's cool. But really, I love to finish projects. Don's car is so close, it's good to get back here. I'm really looking forward to driving the thing.
It's great to have Ian back. While he was gone, I was finishing up on running the brake lines, the fuel lines, some of the electrical that's going into the car. And now that he's here, now we can get down to business on getting that thing closer to being fired up.
Mechanically, Don's got down on all the hoses, wires, brake lines, emergency brake cable. Everything mechanical is complete. Bolting in the drive shaft and modifying the rear forelink are the last two things, and mechanically, it's there. Cool factor times 10. We got some Coker tires, installed some radial white walls, 165s in the front, 235s in the back. It's got the classic big and little hot rod look. The diameter of the rear tires looks great. The frame has got the proportions I like. You gotta see it with the body on. That's what makes it all together. That's what makes it count. Well, the body's in good position. I gotta see what this thing looks like. Been waiting a long time. A lot of effort's gone into getting this far, so let's see what it looks like in the sunlight. I like it, sir.
I like it too. It's so nice to finally see this car going someplace. It's been sitting for 40 some odd years. Now to see it getting so close, I'm so excited about getting that car running and getting it down the road. It is absolutely bitchin'. I couldn't have asked for a better car.
You've seen this car kind of mocked up 100 times already, but with the tires and the paint, this thing is ready. It's looking good. The last bit of fabrication is the exhaust dumps. Don's got a bitchin' set of headers, and they need mufflers. We're bolting on the headers, and I'm gonna fabricate the rest of the exhaust. Don got these old school glass packs, and he wants to run them underneath the doors along the frame like that. Took a whole bunch of cut and welds, but it actually gave it a better shape in the end. I trimmed it back until it has this like flowing rearward, kind of a mellow curvature. It looks good. That's pretty much the layout. I'm gonna take it off and finish weld it, sand it up nice. Don's gonna paint the whole assembly black. So the last bit is just to put a gasket on here. I'm not gonna put it together finally until we're really done, but this is the gist of it. So you got it and it's shut off. It flows out through the mufflers. So it's a 2.5 outlet to a 2-inch end pipe and muffler. But if he goes out to the salt flats or just wants to annoy his neighbors, he can open it up. It'd be like a marching band coming down the street. Without mufflers, this car will be pretty rowdy. You know, everybody would know who's coming through town. Don's looking to be a little more discreet. He's a little more mature than I am.
And we're ready to install this. An aftermarket air cleaner that looks just fantastic.
Usually wiring a car for me is kind of tedious, but I'm gonna try out this wiring harness kit. It looks like it's all there. It's painless, so they say. And all the wires are labeled. Pretty slick. Cool factor number 2, we got a wiring kit from Painless. It's a big hassle to come up and build your own wiring harness from a bare fuse block. So we got this kit and it has everything. The crazy thing about wiring harnesses is there's always a million wires. And this one is color coded. Each wire is labeled. It's like a tiny little silk screen machine. I don't know how they do it. Every wire tells you what it goes to. So although it looks like a crazy bundle, they're all telling you what to do with them. It's really a time saver. And it's pro, you know it works. They got a great reputation. We're there. All we gotta do is button up a few things, start it, and run it. We're in the closing stages of this car. Don's project is just wrapping up. Today's the day we start it. It's all assembled, pretty much just up to the accessories and then the start.
Today's the day. It's all coming together. We're finally going to fire this thing up and put it on the road. I am so excited about this.
Gotta put the taillights on, the deck lid, gotta put the seat in, and the steering column. Pretty minor nuts and bolts. The only thing left to figure out is this third brake light.
When Ian was gone, I went ahead and I got some LED lights.
In my absence, the hood scoop, this great styling element, has become a third brake light. Very interesting.
I like the practicality of the safety part of it because the car sits fairly low, that I think that's going to work out really good.
He wired some wires up through the body, and he put these LEDs inside. In the end, it's all about craftsmanship. You know, that is a very custom third brake light. Our plan is to take an old taillight from a car and just cut that shape out. We talked about it. Don wanted a third brake light, and I said, there's no way you're putting one in the back window. So hiding it in the hood scoop was a better choice. The first step was to cut out the shape from the whole lens. We only need a small piece of red plastic, basically. Just creeped up on it. First I cut it with like a heavy cutting disc, and then I used a sander to just creep up on the final shape. I put a little bevel in it as it meets the body. It'll be like a 45-degree angle, so it'll sit right up against the flange that is in the body. We'll just glue in the seam with a little bit of silicone and just call that done.
Oh, look at that. Boy, somebody will see me from miles away. Perfect. Another wonderful job by FM Ian.
The final step of the whole freaking build. We're there. Don's gonna set up some tool to raise the oil pressure. The motor's been sitting for years, so Don needs to bring up the oil pressure and then rotate the engine a few times and get everything lubricated. I'm pretty stoked. Don turned the key and the thing popped right off. It fired right away. The compression and everything in the motor seems cool. It's firing fine, but it's not delivering fuel. I'm not sure what the deal is. It's pulling the fuel up out of the tank, but it's like sort of just pulsing. It's not really delivering the gas the way it should. For some reason, the gas isn't getting to the engine. Don's gonna set up something with a fuel pump or whatever, but I gotta take off. I gotta pick up a car and deliver it to another client. So I'm gonna come back in about an hour. Should wrap this up and we're gonna run this thing. We're ready to rock. I'd say a significant event occurred in my absence. This fire could have got out of control. Apparently there was too much fuel pressure and the whole engine seems to have caught on fire.
Let's get outside. What happened was the seat and the carburetor stuck open. So it was pushing all the fuel out of the carburetor, and I think there was a spark when I went to pull off the wire, And I think that's what ignited it.
It takes a lot to get me excited. I'm a pretty mellow dude. So, you know, seeing a car that was freshly incinerated, it's pretty exciting. I can't say I was really disappointed because it's exciting, you know? I'm into that kind of stuff. It's a bummer. The car's filthy now, but pretty cool. Not everybody catches their brand new car on fire.
It's not going to run tonight. It will run. It will make it to the show. It's just going to take cleanup time now.
Yeah, well, nothing's burnt. It's just dirty.
No. It's very minor damage.
Well, apparently getting gas isn't the problem now. It seems to get plenty of fuel. So I think we solved that problem. I guess all we got to do is wash it up and run it.
It's running. It's ready to go. We're going to the show. Well, I had to clean up the mess after the fire, and that was a little challenging, but we got all the powder off of the car. Have not fixed one burnt wire yet, but that'll get fixed later on, and adjusted the timing on it, and it's good to go. I'm really happy with the way this whole build went because the car is easy to get in and out of. It's a nice car to drive. It handles well, it corners well, it stops well, and the wife can get in and out of it well. I'm just so tickled. I mean, I couldn't have asked for anything more, or a person that Ian's caliber to help me with my own personal project. Working with Ian, he has taught me that you can make things absolutely bitchin' with the simplest tools, the simple material, that you can take something and make the most awesome stuff with it. That I have learned from him. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, this is assembling it for the first time. Still kind of a mock-up. I don't know if it's actually gonna work, but I got a pretty good idea, so we'll see. This car is really kind of the opposite of what Don's is. His is for the street, this is for the show. It's high fashion. All it does is get off the trailer, show up at the club, and do its dance. It has no other purpose except to get attention. The hardest part about this is that this is a finished, pristine show car. It's not like a mock-up. So I'm really trying to be careful. I want to assemble it, polish it, and show it. I got my car put all back together. The front suspension works great. I got it on the trailer and it's off to the rodeo.
Really excited, fire's out, car runs, and we're here. Very happy. I've had a lot of good reaction. The family just loves it. They can't wait to go for rides in it.
Seeing Don happy with the car, excited to drive it, I mean, that's what it's all about. Working with people and getting that type of response makes it happen for me. How you doing, man?
I guess what kind of engine? Like Pontiac, Oldsmobile?
Oldsmobile.
Okay.
48, yeah.
How does it go?
Drives like a jalopy. It's
Yeah?
like
It's got some poop?
it's like an angry little go-kart.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is that like about a 30 A-bone body?
It's a Chevy.
Oh, it's a Chevy.
Yeah, it's a 31 Chevy.
I'll be
See
darned.
all the extra lines in the
Yeah.
body? Yeah.
Well, what was it, a two-door sedan or
It was a four-door.
Oh, and you shortened it up?
Everything, yeah. Yeah, I shortened it a little.
Made it
The whole
channeled,
9 yards.
chopped it,
Channeled it, sectioned it, and painted the mother pink.
Well, what a car. I've never seen nothing like that in my life. I've been around for 77 years.
Right on.
That's cool.
To finally finish this monumental task and have people stoked on it is really rewarding. You know, I built the car for me, but the people like it.
Right now on Full Custom Garage, Master Metalman Ian Roussel takes on a 1944 fire truck.
These are the basic building blocks for my inspired project. Holy moly, this thing is crazy. It looks like a Model T. I think if I made it smaller that way, and lower that way, that could be a hot rod.
I've never seen one done on this great a scale with such big parts.
My friend Tom and I are gonna put this together for his charity car show.
But when the guys get into it, things don't go as planned.
Tom's yelling, fire, fire. I'm like, what are we gonna do about that?
Should we call the fire department?
With the car show quickly approaching, Ian has to get down and make it happen.
Like a 3 a.m. roll call. I woke up, realized the course of action, followed through.
Yeah, man, now it's looking like a hot rod.
My friend Tom's in the shop. We're doing a project, and he's talking about this car show he's got coming up.
Every year I throw an annual car show, and it's a fundraiser to help raise funds to send kids to summer camp. I think if Ian shows up, it's gonna kick the attendance up a notch. It's 1 month away, and I think you should show up.
I say we just build something. Like, build something new and bring it to your show to reveal it. I think that would be a hit.
So I was thinking, man, it'd be really cool if Ian showed up to my car show, but now he's talking about building something. You're telling me that you're gonna build, that we're gonna build.
Yeah, you gotta be here. Tom's kind of blown away. So he's a little concerned, but I think we could do this. I got this potential up at my friend Bill's house, and if I can get that off his hill, I'll bring it down here and you'll see. He'll be totally into it.
I'm on board, let's do it.
Cool, you
Sounds
just gotta
fun.
be here. That's
I'll
all
be
it
here.
takes.
I guess I'm gonna be here for the next month building something with Ian. Hopefully we get it done.
We're up at Bill's, and the treasure hunt is on.
Now this is the chassis that the roll-off truck you did came off of.
This is a 1948 International Harvester. It's a KB8. It's a big rig. We used the body on Bill's other project truck. So he had all the components from the early truck left over. This thing is old school, man. It almost looks like an old hot rod frame you would start with, just gigantic. The axle's super cool. If you didn't know better, you'd think it was like a giant Model T or something, just the
Yep.
way everything looks. There's a reason Bill didn't use this. It's pretty rough. The engine is toast, transmission is who knows what. It's completely gunked up with dirt. I don't need any of that. All I need is the frame and the axles. It's a perfect starting point.
Yeah, this chassis is rough, but I didn't want to throw it away, and Ian doesn't like throwing away either.
I think I could build another vehicle out of this. Do you have a cab? Obviously, we used the cab on your other truck.
I do. I have 2 international bodies. I like international trucks, I always have, and every time one comes available, I got it.
So this is like a 48. It's the same as yours, right?
This is a 48. This would have been called a KB5.
Yeah, it's smaller.
Right.
And this is like a 54?
I think 53 or 4,
53?
something around that era.
And this bed was on the back of this red International
No,
here?
different vehicle altogether. This was off of a 1944 Seagraves fire truck, roadster type fire truck.
crazy. Oh yeah, it's got these handles where they would hold on.
Yeah, the fireman would hang on. I
like
doubt
it.
whether they're OSHA approved today.
Yeah, this is neat. Oh yeah, engine 4. Says it right on it.
Well, you know, I have the cab for this still. I don't have any frame.
You have the sheet metal.
I have the sheet metal Roadster cab.
Well, never mind these little dinky pickup trucks. Where's the fire engine, man?
I'll show you the fire engine.
In Bill's endless pile of parts, he's got a fire truck. Holy moly.
Yeah, this is what's left of my fire truck.
Where do you get something like this?
Well, I bought this years ago at an auction, and it was a complete truck at that time. You know, I love the old fire truck because it's a roadster, and it's one of those keeps getting moved back project. I'm never gonna get around to it.
This is freaking awesome. This thing is crazy. It looks like a Model T with this cowl, and then an awesome, like for the Model Ts, for the racing cars, they would make a V-butted windshield, and this has already got it. I really need to check this thing out. Pulled it out of the weeds, and it's in very good shape. I know the chassis got the look. And then seeing this body and the bedsides, I'm thinking giant hot rod truck. So I think that this cab is the game changer. Never mind those pickup trucks. Bill and I have got a really good working relationship. We exchange parts for work a lot of times. Judging by the amount of stuff that he just gave me, I might be in line with him for some really wild stuff.
I'm always excited to watch Ian and see his gears turning in his head and what he does.
These are the basic building blocks for my inspired project. I got this thing all cleaned up. It's ready to start work. Like any good project, the first thing you do is cut it up. This is a big old truck. I want to make it look more like a hot rod. All the dimensions have to be snugged up, made a little more low, and streamlined. I think the coolest way to go about this is to use all the existing suspension components and reconfigure them, achieve the look I'm going for with the stock stuff. Tom's coming in to help me work on this. He doesn't know anything about my little hot rod project, except that I'm building something cool. I hope it doesn't freak him out, because we got a lot of work to do.
Man, this thing's massive.
This is the grand master plan.
Yeah, but where's the rest of the truck?
This is it, man. It's a truck, right?
Where's the rest of it, though?
It's outside, man. We got pieces.
I walk into the shop, and there's no truck. There's just a frame. The car show's like 3 weeks away. It's like, what's going on here, Ian? Where's the truck? Jeez, it's massive.
Yeah, so I'm gonna put this together in 3 weeks with your help.
In 3 weeks, we're gonna get, man.
Yeah, all we have to do is build a whole truck.
That's all we gotta do.
I've done it before, man. We could make this happen. I'm not showing Tom the body of the truck yet. I think we should just focus on the suspension. I don't want him to get distracted. The suspension configuration is really the key to the whole look of this thing.
I'm excited. I'm big time excited for this big project. I have faith in Ian, so I'm just gonna follow along. I'm gonna see what happens.
The whole concept with the front end suspension on this project is it's a quarter elliptic, suicide style front end. The easiest way to describe it is I took the stock leaf springs, I cut them in half and turned them upside down. Made a whole bunch of brackets. It's all concept. I just want to put everything in place and see how it's going to fit up. Before, with the leaf spring and the chassis up here, if something broke, it just fell down on the axle. Now, if it breaks, it's going right to the ground.
The whole truck goes down.
They call it the suicide front end for a reason. You're really hanging the whole truck off of these fabricated parts on the axle. So now you can see how these little holders are gonna lock right on there.
People use suicide front ends all the time, but I've never seen one done on this great a scale with such big parts.
Unfortunately, there's really no way to test out a portion of this. I'm really committed to building the whole thing, getting it in place, and then seeing if it works. The way these radius rods comes off of the spindle, you see it in a lot of hot rods, you have to heat it up and bend it. The issue is this is a truck. It's gonna take a ton of heat. If you don't have enough heat, you could always give more leverage. That's kind of the thing. We got one 10-foot bar on one side. I got a crowbar on the other side. The torch is maxed out. We're just trying to get enough heat into this part to bend it. What I'm finding is I'm gonna need a bigger torch or a little more time. If you get the rosebud torch on the acetylene tank, you get a lot of heat. I don't have one. I'm trying to work it out.
There we go.
Eventually it bends. Metal turns plastic with enough heat. That was the whole issue. Just get enough heat in it, and we got it to move. Let's let that cool for about 3 hours. We needed to do that so that these rods won't foul on the steering. So this radius rod's gonna come in and grab that plate, and now the steering is completely above that. So I'm trying to explain to Tom what I'm cooking here. I got your typical radius rod scenario, but just giant size. I just set up the ends. This is a piece of a landing gear.
Ian pulls out this part. It's really cool. It's got this military green on it. He says it's from some landing gear. So is it cool to put airplane stuff on hot rods?
Yeah. You know that surplus place I love so much. They got all this good stuff. The lower arm on this radius rod needed a bend in it, about 90 degrees-ish. I wanted Tom to get on the machine and get a little workout, you know? Everybody thinks the fabrication is all glamorous, but it's also a heck of an exercise session. The last 2 pulls are really tough.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
The way this machine works is it increases leverage as you go around the dial. So Tom starts off, he's like, oh, this ain't no thing. I was like, keep on pulling, brother. You'll see what it's made of.
Go. Wow, dude, how do you do this?
That's what I'm saying. It's freaking tough.
I've seen Ian pull tubes before, but he makes it look easy. It's not. It's not as easy as it looks. I win.
There you go, man. Victory. Once I put the tubes in place, you could see it's got that look, that hot rod look. All of this is conceptual, but you never know till you try it.
If it works, yeah.
What do you mean, if? If it works, he's gonna eat his hat.
This hat? No, this is my favorite hat. I'm kind of skeptical. We're taking giant parts from a giant truck and we're trying to trick them out hot rod style. Anything could happen.
Drop her down.
Moment of truth, huh?
The big question in my head was, how is this gonna operate? Is it gonna swing smoothly through its arc, or is it gonna bind? Huh. Actually works. Oh, it totally works. Look at that. And as soon as I stepped on the chassis, I could tell the motion I wanted to see in the shackles was perfect. You know, you're getting pretty good at this, Tom.
I'm learning from the best. At the end of the day, the work we did not only looks cool, but it's functioning perfectly.
On to the next. We got the front axle and the chassis pretty much nailed. I think this is a great starting point. I want to show Tom the actual truck body. Here's our truck body.
What is that?
Rolling it in, it looks just like what I saw up at Bill's. It's like a big rusty box coming at you. But once I explained, it's a 1944 Seagrave fire truck.
It's a fire truck.
Yeah.
Okay, man, this is cool. Man, it's got some really cool, just stuff on it.
Well, look at the front. It's almost like a Model T. It's like a roadster pickup.
Oh man, no, this is totally a hot rod. So I've never seen anything like this before. This is a 40s war era vehicle right here, and it's in our hands. So what are your plans with this?
Remains to be seen what it will become. That's the whole thing with just working through it. We just gotta figure it out.
Well, let's mock it up.
Up to this point, this whole project's been conceptual. The whole look of this project is how the body sits on the chassis. It's the look of the whole ride. So getting it in place, I could tell right away, and Tom agreed, this thing is way too tall. Look how freaking massive this body is.
Yeah, it looks kind of goofy up tall like that.
It is, it's way too tall. My initial thought was this was gonna be kind of a highboy style, real old school look on top of the frame rails. As soon as it was in place, I could tell it was not gonna be okay. That's why I wanted to put this body on. It's just way too big. When the whole truck is up in the air, the body looks kind of small, but now it looks massive. That close to the ground, it changes everything. The firewall looks like a freaking tombstone. It's gigantic. I think we gotta channel it.
Yeah, there's no question about that. It'll look so much cooler too.
Right, I'm talking about a hot rod, and you know the formula, man. Low, big and little tires, then lean. We gotta strip this thing down. It's looking good, but it ain't there yet. Both Tom and I agree, this big box on the back of the cab is not the look we're going for. First order of business is to chop it off. Channeling means you drop the body down over the frame. It gives the whole vehicle a lower profile. The compromise is the interior room. But I don't care about riding comfort. This is all about the look. We're channeling this sucker. Get it down. I'm just into it, you know. I love this plasma cutter. I'll use it all day long. So I got the shades on, you know, shields are down. I'm in the moment. Tom's yelling.
Woo, we got a fire in the fire truck.
Fire in the truck. I think he's just into the fire truck. I'm like, yeah. This is these wooden cars, man.
Yeah.
What are we gonna do about that?
Should we call the fire department?
Wanna see something cool? First things first is I see this as an opportunity. I mean, if this is a fire truck, I'm gonna do some experimenting.
Should put a little bit of gasoline on there for some dramatics, so it really looks like it's on fire.
No, this is like fire department stuff. You starve it from oxygen. Theory behind it is if the fire has no oxygen, it will extinguish. So I'm thinking lack of oxygen, carbon dioxide doesn't have any oxygen. Let's try some of that. That didn't work. I guess the velocity of it coming out just made a really better fire. Plan B.
So the fire's growing. Ian says, okay, this isn't working. Don't worry about it. I got a fire extinguisher.
I hate this thing. Ready for the mess? Whoa, you're out. That didn't work. We just had a fire the other day, and I used all the fire extinguisher. Let it burn. I'm done. All the while, the truck's still burning. Tom's gonna go old school on it.
So here I am, working on a fire truck, and I think, what would a fireman do? I went and got some water. Everything's solved.
You know, Tom, that's why I keep you around.
Because I'm a hard thinker?
Here I am with all of my cockamamie ideas. And you came in with the oldest form of fire prevention I've ever seen.
And now we need a mop.
We got the fire out, the body lowered down, just as we expected, and it looks great. Now you're talking hot rod. That's perfect. What do you think about that, Captain? Is that gonna work?
Yeah, man, now it's looking like a hot rod.
The thing with getting the body in place is now we can kind of mock up what the wheelbase is gonna be. So in order to do that, we got the engine in place. It's a 454, it's a big block Chevy out of an old 1-ton dually I had. It's a great running powertrain. After that, we mocked up the bedsides. I knew right off the bat that these bedsides were way too long. I had my own vision of what this was gonna be. I also brought Tom on board because I wanted to see what his vision was gonna be. Groovy. I think we're onto something, man. What do you think?
I don't know, man. It's too long. It's too boxy. Something's just not right. Something's got to be done here.
You're right. That bed's too long. Do you like the slanted back with the cool detail on the handrail?
I like that. You know what? There's got to be a way to keep the coolness of the back and the coolness of the front.
The engine 4, right?
Right. Got to keep that engine 4 and got to keep those handrails.
See that seam right behind the upright? We could cut that handrail right in half. It's already 2 pieces. So we can, look, this comes apart right here. So we could ditch this upright, make a new one, and just cut it somewhere in here and hide it with the tire, hide the seam with the tire. Wait till you see how tall these tires are.
Whoa, man, look at those. That's a tire.
Yeah.
Wow.
These are the biggest tires I could find available for the street. They're off of a cement truck. They're just massive, heavy-duty semi-truck tires. I think we nailed the wheelbase, but I think it's time now for some conceptual sketches. Moving around all these parts is starting to get to me. It's heavy. Tom's a graphic designer, and just like I like to take cars and stack parts, he likes to take pictures of cars and manipulate them on Photoshop. At this point, we're still in the theory and design of the rear bed. Tom's gonna go back, come up with some ideas, and I'm just gonna keep on building. So Tom and I figured out the wheelbase on this. It actually looks pretty short in comparison to the original frame. The thing is making it strong enough to hold this massive rear axle in place. You can see this is no lightweight setup. I got a bunch of motorhome front suspension parts from Bill when I was up there. The front end of this big diesel pusher motorhome had an airbag suspension, and these were the components that held the axle in place. The cool thing is I want to take the front suspension parts and convert them to the rear suspension. In looking at this kit, I can tell it's not going to work for the ride height that I'm choosing. I think that if I flip over some of the components, turn it upside down, and reattach it, and do some other formulating, it just might work. Just like the front suspension, I got to do a bunch of welding just to see if this thing works. The whole concept with the rear suspension on this truck is slammed, super low. It's gonna have airbag suspension, so the frame needs to be really modified. My plan for this is to build like a miniature tube chassis just on the back. I got 2-inch round tube, 1/8 wall, DOM, super strong stuff. So I'm gonna create a shape that goes up over the axle, back around, and reattaches to the chassis. Bottom line with this design is that I'm gonna have to cut the frame right off. This whole chassis design is really high-tech stuff. I'm kind of doing a little behind-the-scenes action before Tom gets back. He doesn't need to know about this. It's all my brain work. When he comes back, it's gonna lift up, be ready to roll.
Hey, hey.
Ah.
Wow, man, look at that cage. Well, I was really surprised when I came in and saw the airbag setup all done. Ian grabbed the air hose and fed some air to those airbags, and up it went, and he released it, and down it went, and it looked good raised up, and it looked even cooler let loose. Yeah, I really like the way it's sitting, nice and low for something this size.
I'm all charged up about my engineering and chassis design, and Tom comes in and he's all charged up about his artistic interpretation.
So check this out.
That's freaking cool, man.
Did a little bit of photo chopping and
Yeah,
our rendering.
I like it. I was thinking like, you know, flat black or something, but you're talking about a fire truck.
Well, yeah, well, it is a fire truck. Might as well
get it.
keep that coolness about it.
Sure.
This fire truck's from 1944, and you know, it's taken decades to build that paint job that's right there. And so I didn't want to mess with that. It looks cool the way it is.
Looking at this rendering, I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I want to build. And the way he drew it out, it looks perfect. I think the proportions are just right.
So what I did was I brought in the bed sides a little bit.
Right, I like that.
Okay, that way it gives it a little bit of a pickup uphill,
Sure.
but it's not, you know, too flat down the side. It's still kind of hot rod. Kept the rails on there. I thought those are a nice touch, and added a few little extra characteristics to it to make it, you know, believable it's a fire truck.
I get it. Kids dig fire trucks, right? The only
Right,
thing we'd
exactly.
need is those hoses. I don't know where the heck we'd get them. That's a cool accessory.
Hold on a second. I got something for you.
All right.
This past weekend, I was at my friend's house, and he's got a really big yard full of really cool old school stuff. Check out what I got for you.
You are serious about this fire truck thing.
I am.
Wow. Tom is all charged up about this. You know, he took the time to take photos and do all these concepts, and he's got the fire hose to prove it. So like your sketch is showing, I'm just hanging right back here, right?
That's right.
Groovy.
When I saw the fire hoses, it really inspired me.
Let's do that. Let's make a hot rod fire truck. I think that's cool. Kids are gonna dig it.
Right.
It's a charity thing. Just keep a good vibe going. We don't need no flat black rat rod. We'll make a cool fire truck.
I'm glad you're into it. Sometimes it just takes a big hose.
Sometimes that's all you need. This thing is pretty much a roller. The suspension works. I finished all the welding on the front, and this rear is good to go. I got the drive shaft in. You see the brakes are in. It steers. So without the bed sides, it's incomplete. We got to get them done today.
Yeah, all right.
Clock's ticking, man.
Let's get on it.
Today's Tuesday. Your show is Sunday, right?
That's right.
We got this. No problem. When we set up the channeling in the body, we both agreed right away, that's the look. But now we have to set up the bed to complement that. So it's really just a bunch of big, heavy pieces. We need to kind of put them in place, mock it up, and just see what looks right. Since we're not welding the bed sides right to the door jamb, we need to offset it. I'm gonna cut a piece of square tube in half, make a little offset bracket, and weld them on. Yeah, see, I was thinking it would go right inside there. You stand back and look at the height, and I'll put a clamp on it. The whole thing is Tom drew a great illustration. He made a great rendering of what this thing could be. So I'm holding up the metal, asking him what's right. Do you think this height is good, or should it come up a bit?
No, I like the height right there. The back, I think, needs a little bit of a rake, though. Right now, they're nice and flat and level, which gives a kind of a hokey look that I'm not crazy about. This thing needs to be raked.
Hold it. Okay, so that's parallel with the door jamb. That's how it wants to be.
I can already tell that's it.
I'm not 100% sure on the rake of this thing. I want to get the bed sides fully mocked up and then decide if it's right or not. We started by shortening the bed sides 11 inches. Looks like a garbage truck. I think they're too long.
This is a really critical moment because this entire time we've been wanting to balance between fire truck and hot rod, and it can go either way. It's really long and it's looking like a fire truck.
You can see here, the handrails, once they come out on their little stanchion, they're way out. All right, so that's the height. See what I'm saying? It's almost like the handrail needs to be just inboard of this. I'd like to see the handrail here. This is a big truck, and we're shortening it, I don't know how much, a couple feet. So that's the way it works, you know? It's trial and error. See, man, that's where we're at. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, then it's just past the tire. Initially, you might think the bed looks a bit too short, but this handrail comes out another 7 or 8 inches. Once you put the handrail on, you could tell.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
How we're getting somewhere.
And you were dead on about the amount we needed to take out of the back to make it look good.
This is gonna be cool, man.
Yeah.
Real cool.
The back piece of the bed has all the characteristics that tell the story of it being a fire truck. So without it, it's not a fire truck anymore.
This was a big step to get accomplished, but there's still something I'm not sure about. As soon as Tom walked out the door, I start staring at this truck, just giving it the old stink eye. I chose to take a few side shots with the camera, plug it in the computer, and just stare at it. Fell asleep in the chair. 3 hours later, I knew it was wrong. Started to have nightmares, and it was all about this fire truck and people laughing. I had to come out and remedy it. It was not gonna work. It was not gonna be okay. I came back out here, and I've been working ever since. This angle here was coming down into the door. The body came up a little, and the bed came down a little. So you can see now, these lines are almost parallel. You see some cartoon hot rods used in that style bed. It just wasn't working for this fire truck. It's way more conservative because the body is up and the angle of the bed is perfect. It's funny. That's why they make these things, these squares, because you know what? Sometimes square is okay. Did the inevitable before we got even further into it. I cut everything back off and repositioned it. Like a 3 a.m. roll call. I woke up, realized the course of action, and followed through. It's been a long day. It's subtle, but in the end, it makes a big difference. The good news is, with all that past us, I got all this structure in. You can see there's gonna be a deck here. You could sit or stand. This is all 1-inch square tube. It's pretty thick, it's 13 gauge wall. So even my big oaf of a self can move around pretty easily on it without even having any wood. I'm going real simple on the interior here. It's gonna be wooden floors, just like a lot of the old cars. Cut some plywood, screw it down to the frame, and put a surface on it. Tom came in just as I was finishing the bed. I'm excited to see what he thinks.
Dad, notice we got some wood going on here.
Notice anything else different? I need you to stand back and focus. Feel the force. Something changed.
I could tell.
I spent a lot of time on this, so I'm gonna let Tom stew on it for a while. There's something very different.
Besides the steering wheel being missing.
Yes.
Ian's telling me there's something else that he's done to the truck. I can't really put my finger on it. I could tell there's something different, but whatever it is, I'm just not seeing it. It's not popping out at me. Is it shorter?
I don't know. It's up to you to decide. I decided I had enough fun at Tom's expense, so I'm gonna tell him what went down. Remember how much we dug the bed coming in raked?
Yeah.
I made them straight. I took the rake out of it. Yeah, and I just relaxed the angle, and now you can see the bed is almost parallel with the door top.
It's done so well. You did such a good job that I couldn't even notice. It looks like this is how it's supposed to be, so.
Well, there you go.
Good job.
I've been really moving on the fabrication on this. Tom shows up again, and he's got some treasure.
Aha, check it out.
What you got there?
I got some lights. Headlights, tail lights.
All kinds of shapes.
Yep.
Tom walks in with a bundle of stuff. Right away, I see these old school headlights. They look like some kind of an early 30s vehicle. These are cherry, super old school.
These are like late 30s Buick or Olds.
Huh, yeah, they got the deluxe chromie on there.
Yeah.
And you got the trim rings.
Yep.
Sweet. Right away, looking at these headlights, I think they're perfect. He's got a bunch of other stuff. The taillights, he's got a couple choices. These are freaking military surplus.
Yeah. Isn't that
Crazy.
cool?
They got like blackout lenses on them. Where'd you get these?
Out in the desert. One of them,
I think I need to go out to the desert more. They got all the good stuff.
Yeah, let me know.
Crazy. I think these are the taillights. These are totally classy. And obviously that's the headlight set. The grill I got from Bill, a guy I got the truck from. Tom pretty much got the headlights covered. I'm gonna show him this awesome grill I got from my friend Bill. The cool factor about this front grill shell is that it was the original grill for the chassis. So it's got that old school big truck look. Putting the headlights next to it right away, I could tell this was the setup. It just needs to be radically sectioned. That's good, man. That's a pretty mean looking nose.
Yeah, it is.
This is gonna have to get sectioned way down. So we'll use this feature and then these two lights plugging in right on the side and we'll do whatever we need to cut off the bottom. But that's pretty freaking deluxe, man. I think these will be perfect. The first thing we did was set up the grill with a level across it just to get a ballpark estimate of how much this thing has to be sectioned.
9.5 inches.
I'm thinking the same way we accomplished the body and the bed, we're gonna do the same with the grill. We're gonna cut off a little, fit it up as many times as it takes until it looks right. Well, let's shorten up the inside, and then we'll just cut the bottom off of this. I got plenty other stuff to do. I'm handing off the cutting wheel to Tom. Let him get dirty.
Ian puts that job in my hands, and I don't know, I'm partly excited. At the same time, I'm partly scared. Ian has, without a doubt, given me one of the most important pieces to work on. And yeah, if I mess it up, well, he only has one person to blame.
Hey, Tom, don't mess that up, all right?
Yeah, You know, I'm cutting up an old school grill that's really cool looking, and you know, that's a little bit of a challenge. It's kind of tricky.
So while Tom's handling all the technical stuff, I'm gonna get busy with a bunch of trash. This thing needs a seat. I got a couple old parts and a couple leftover handrails. This is the structure or the tube frame for, it looks like an old school bus seat. I stripped it down and it had this tube frame under it. I need it wider. The old handrail sections from the fire truck bed sleeve on it perfectly.
One thing that Ian's really good at is taking old stuff and making it usable again. Rather than trashing it, you know, he makes use out of it.
Anybody could go to the metal supply and get these parts. I got it right here, some old fire truck and some old school bus seat. It's gonna work. There you have it, one full custom seat frame. Well, I've been working. Tom's making his initial cuts on the front grille. It needs to be shorter, so I'm gonna make some marks for him to follow.
Ian breaks out the soapstone and starts drawing some stuff on it, some lines, cut here, cut there.
So you cut right like that.
Wait, where do you want me to cut it at? It's kind of confusing me. He's got lines over here, lines over there. They're intersecting. It looks like a map of South Central or something. I'm not sure what's up. This is the I guess, caveman style
You're gonna come in like this, right? You see a guy here, you turn left. You see a guy there. As you're coming around here,
Right. You cut that side. I'm sure in Ian's mind, he knew exactly what he was doing. That's why he wrote the lines the way he did. He knew he has a vision. A little scared here. I'm trying to keep up, and I'm like, wow, can I do this? It's a tricky thing going on right here. I hope that's what he wanted. I make my first couple cuts. We take it back over to the fire truck to mock it up and see how it's gonna fit.
so standing back looking at it, I think the height works. But I think that grill still has to come in.
Bring it in behind the axle.
Yeah, then it's gonna look like the suicide axle's proper. Just still, proportion-wise, the engine, you're seeing the radiator, right? The engine's just kind of hanging in space. With the grill ahead of the axle, there was plenty of clearance for the suspension to move. But as soon as we wanted to set it back, the axle, the shackles, everything was gonna smash this thing as soon as it hit a bump. So I think the only way we're gonna make this work is to cut like a V shape in the front. I think my lines will make a little more sense this time. You want to cut it, or you want me to cut it?
I'm letting you cut this. Ian lines it up for some more cuts, and this time I'm like, oh, hang on a sec. It's getting a little bit detailed here. So I hand it back to Ian and say, you cut it. I'm not messing this thing up. It's in your hands again now, pal.
I think all this cutting was starting to get to him. He was a little hesitant to go for the radical sectioning. Now he's even more hesitant to go for the V cut, so I'm gonna pull a few tricks for him and help him out. Hopefully we got it right this time. We're running out of grill.
Set it up on the truck, and it looks great.
Right off the bat, it worked. It's gonna need a little more trimming, but this is the look. Yeah, now look at the line from the bed. It's all facing down. Standing back looking at it, the grill is set back inside the front tires. It looks like a mean machine.
The grill of a hot rod's a very important piece. You know, if you mess it up, it's obvious. You know, it's right out there in front. We cut a lot off of it, but it's still looking cool.
Tom's got to hit the road. There's a ton of little details to finish up. I got about 2 days to do it. Just gonna make it happen. I made a lot of progress on the truck and got my ace, Jackie Rabbit. She's here doing her clean and paint detail. She's clear coating the body. She's putting on all the fasteners. Everything that looks pretty. While Jackie's handling all this paint and detail, I get to get this exhaust built. Fortunately, my friend Don donated this set of headers. Unfortunately, for me, they're for a small block Chevy, and I got the big. These look like your typical headers from, say, a T-bucket kit car. You know, you see them all over the place in the 60s and 70s, people running these headers that come out, down, and they got exhaust dumps. They are the perfect look, but the one big problem is they don't fit this engine. When you look at the exhaust ports on the head, you can see the outer ones are almost in alignment, but the inner ones you could see are way wider. The first step is to cut off the flanges on the header. I got another set that are bolted to the engine, and I need to make a match. Now I need to take these two center ones and split them wider. I think I'm gonna have to torch these bends to anneal them. If it was a nice chromy finish, we'd ruin that, but these are rusty. I can get away with it. Metal is malleable. You just gotta warm it up. You can move it around like clay. So these tubes, as strong as they are, as soon as you heat them up, you can reform them. But see, look, it moves right over. My whole process with this was to try to gain leverage so that last bend, the hardest one, would have a bunch of stuff to work off of. So this one, you can see already, it's definitely a good 1.5 to 2 inches out of alignment, but it's also got to come up. So this tube needs to stretch up and forward. I plan on accomplishing that with a big old torch and a big old pry bar. Now you got a 3 against 1 scenario. I heat that last one up, it's got to give. The thing that was bothering me most about this exhaust mod was that you had new material welded right up to old. Aesthetically, this whole truck has to come together as one. If you put one shining, gleaming chrome thing, it kind of outdoes the rest. Hey, move it. You don't know what this could do to a furry animal. Stand back. So my plan is to just torch the heck out of it. These headers have been on a hot running engine for decades. I'm just gonna simulate that with my big old blowtorch and make it all happy. This thing is pretty much nailed. Car show's tomorrow. I'm gonna take it up there, show off to Tom, the kids, whoever else is there. Let's party. My favorite thing about this is the transformation. You saw what was pulled off the hill. Look what's hanging out in the shop right now. Before I take this thing to Tom's car show, I wanted my friend Bill to come in and see the transformation. Hey there.
Wow, Ian.
Welcome back. I went for it, man.
You did. You know, typical Ian, it's amazing. He shortened it, widened it, lowered it, resprung it, resuspension, and it's really amazing, really amazing. You know, when this was sitting on the hill, I was hoping that it wouldn't just sit there. I was hoping it would get back together.
Yeah, really the only part I didn't get from you was the engine, the headlights, and the seat.
It just looks great. I love the originality of the 1944 Seagraves fire truck.
The wood deck and the back step solidifies the fire truck look. All this thing needs is a couple firemen on the back step. Fire hoses are in place, it's ready for action. I got this thing wired up and fired up. It's driving around, I'm ready to take it to the car show.
Today, we're here at the CLA 4th Annual Spring Car Show and Fundraiser. We're raising money to help send kids to summer camp.
It's a total down-home community thing, lots of cool cars, barbecue, bands, you name it. Tom's put this car show on for a few years and it just keeps getting bigger and better, so to be a part of it and bring a fresh build out, it's super cool, helping out a friend. Tom hadn't seen this thing in a few days, so when I pulled up this morning, he was really excited to check it out.
Oh man, I was blown away. It turned out awesome, man. Well, this thing seems to be a crowd pleaser. People are digging this hot rod fire truck. They're loving everything about it.
I came out here specifically to see this car. What I like about it is he's not afraid to go with something big and bodacious. When people actually see it in person and get to see the tactile feel and see it roll down the street, but you can't help but to look at it and go, damn, that's awesome.
I just think the man's an artist. Just the total coolness of the whole deal. I was pretty blown away.
You know, every time I've worked with Ian, I bring something to the table, but I take something home too. I either learn something when it comes to how to build or artistically. It helps me grow as a hot rodder and a car builder myself.
Building a truck of this proportion is a pretty massive undertaking, especially in the time frame, but just like working out, you know, we got through this. It's on to the next, bigger and better.
Custom Garage!